Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Skoto. You are welcome to the gallery. And today we'll be having a gallery talk by Bimpong and Tom Otterness, the artists whose work are being shown at the gallery right now. If we'll, as much as possible, we'll try and make it as informal and free-flowing as possible. So I will right now introduce Tom Otterness, right? And Bimpong.
That's nice everybody came.
Growing up in Ghana, after the independence, we had independence in 1957 from British rule. And my work was inspired by post-independence sentiments, and I carved wood, modeled in terracotta, and my works were depicting everyday life and scenes, highlighting the rich cultures that the nationalists were trying to take back from colonization. After traveling to London and then coming to the US, my work took a different dimension. It was more of a international feeling to it, in that I was becoming conscious of international politics, being a black person coming from Africa. I had a training at Johnson Atelier, which is a sculpture foundry in Trenton. Then I started casting in bronze, steel, and aluminum. I started to iconize the plump woman, use them to deconstruct that theory, and then using the same fat or plump woman to highlight the spiritual importance of the woman in our society, with emphasis on reference to indigenous cultures. It has it has little or nothing to do with the type of a contemporary feminism we're dealing with in this society. So I'm not gonna be responsible for such questions and answers here. And taking Odaya, for instance, Odaya is a horizontal laying earth goddess. As horizontal as she is, one could obviously see modesty in her. Yet she's full of power, like the earth and the mother. She can nurture, contain, and when she's not happy with things, she trembles, and we know what happens when earth trembles. There's earthquake. We know what happens when your mother gets pissed off with you. You might be starving for days and that kind of stuff. So that's how much powerful she is. At this point, I guess I will hand over to Tom and be prepared for questions. Thank you very much.
I was real excited to have the chance to show here at Skoto's Gallery and show with Bright. We didn't know each other before, and we met really on the day that it opened. And I thought, well, Skoto really knows his business. You know, when I came in the room and I actually saw Bright's sculpture, and I thought, oh, there's a real relationship between us. And I was happy about that. I really like I've followed for a few years the sort of scene that Skoto's got going here, and contemporary African work that he'd show. And I thought it was really fascinating to come to try to bring those two cultures together, to try to bring it, that Skoto tries to bring it directly here to New York, and that I could enter into that context, that I could see my own work inside of that context instead of perhaps seeing African work inside the context of a Soho art situation. I always thought it was interesting that Bright's work seems to come, if I understand it, out of Africa, but maybe explores some European traditions, and I come out of a very European tradition, American tradition anyway, and head toward African influences. So I think we somewhere in that cross we meet. You know, and this work in particular is new for me in that the ones that are on the wall. I usually make prototypes, a kind of universal figure that I make molds out of, and then I cast multiples. And I was making a new scale of this figure, and I thought, well, I'll save some money and I'll make both sexes in one cast, you know. And I thought, well, and I'll put the arms on later. Usually I cast this in a clay that I can manipulate, and then I could either take off a breast or a penis. But when it got to this stage, I thought, well, that looks pretty wild. Maybe I'll just leave it alone and keep it as a sculpture on its own. And then once I had these prototypes, I started thinking, made them really directly for this show. And I thought of a primary, I started coloring them, and I thought of primary colors, basically, the blue, white, red, yellow, black. And thinking of having basically all the primary colors, and then unifying male and female. So there's some ideas like that in the work.
There was a time as I walked by here often where I speculated that this might be a collaboration.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
The big head has a lot of references. I mean, it's sort of like an African sculpture.
It's also, you know, the Bright's using all these also kind of truncated forms and things, like bodies without heads, and then I've got heads without bodies. That we both seem to be into some kind of fragmentation or something.
Is that sculpture a boy or a man or a woman?
Yeah, see, they get right down to it, you know, when everybody else circles around. This is the core question. It's both.
I think that what he just mentioned about the layers of culture in the work, in both your works, is, you know, it's pretty apparent, and I wonder if that's something that you're really conscious of in the course of making these works, or just how, in the conception of the work, that you manage to work these different layers or these different cultures in? Or does it simply become because you're aware, or that you have that awareness anyway, so that automatically becomes part of the work? Or is it something that you consciously try to build into the works?
When I thought of sculpture, I thought of public sculpture first, really. And I looked to that American tradition or that period in the 30s of public sculpture, or WPA work, or work that was done both in Russia and Nazi work and American work, all had very similar style to it. And part of those ambitions were to, I think, if I understood it, part of their ambitions were to reach some universal language in sculpture.
Does that get worked out in the transformative process of the drawings? Or how important is the drawings?
Usually
working out a single image in which these things finally come together.
They all come out of notebook drawings, like, and those notebook drawings are usually copies straight from Olmec heads or whatever cultures. I did a lot of just straight copies that would then, I would either kind of forget and they would become an unconscious influence, or I would take a next step or think about you know, kind of a modern variation on it.
Right, or you talk about this in terms of the earth goddess.
Yeah.
Are they all essentially the same goddess? That
Well,
one standing on the world back there, or on a great rock, or egg?
not necessarily earth goddess, but they all have some sort of a spiritual inclination to them. Taking the role of our mothers and women in society into consideration, there are various roles that they play, and we could see their importance in various ways. Either they nurture, they fend for us. In a nutshell, it's all about the importance of of women, be them your mother, your cousin, your sister, you know. But back in Africa, I'm not trying to put Western culture down, but we boys, we go home and our sisters or our cousins have cooked for us, you know. So we have that sort of relationship with our female relatives, you know, which is very, very special and spiritual, you know. So that's what my forms are, you know, depicting. You know.
If you showed these in Ghana, what would the people there see in the work that we here would not see?
They will ask me very few questions. In that, I mean, it will be direct. The message will be there. You know, they won't have any problem getting it.
I don't really know too much about the pottery work and that whole line, but it interested me that you, the thing, was it Studio Museum?
Yeah, it was
where
in
you
the
showed
Studio
it?
Museum.
I didn't see it, but you had, somebody described it like a whole room full of the pots,
Yeah.
or?
I had about 250 pots.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, installed in the Studio Museum. Again, that was a tribute to the women in African society. In Africa, the pots are made by women, and these same women, you know, use them to fetch water, cook, and everything for the men. I'm not saying the men don't do anything.
What do they do?
You know, so again, it was a tribute, and again, it was a metaphor of survival, nurturing, you know, things of that sort, you know. Yeah.
Now, but in this case, you made the pots.
I made it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made.
So-
I made because it's was being made in the United States. I couldn't. Being made in the United States, and there's little I could do to really reflect on the exact process that goes on in Africa.
Yeah.
You know, my work is incomplete till I resolve the texture aspect of it. Doesn't matter how nice the form is, you know, in the eyes of my friends and the rest who come to my studio in the course of making it. You know, to me, I have to be able to, you know, compromise the forms and the textures. Sometimes I finish a piece and I have to discard it because I'm not happy with the texture, and I don't show pieces like that to anybody. So I use clay. I change my way of casting to attain different texture, you know, feelings, you know. So it's I don't have one way or one formula of coming out with these textures. Most of them are quote unquote accidental, but I make conscious efforts to attain them. This one, for instance, the original was molded in wax. I wanted to change the texture, so I cast it in plaster of Paris, then play with the textures because plaster to have a different response with the tools. Then I made another mold in sand because sand was going to push the texture to a different level.
Yeah. I'm picking up a few technical tips.
The surface boards of the drawings, both here and in the show at Brook, it says ceramic, or
It's something if you read Western Artist magazine or sort of craft magazines, you'll find clayboard is the technical
playboard.
name.
Okay, and does that absorb the sepia inks, or I mean, what attracted
They say it's
you
a
to
baked
that?
clay, and illustrators use it, and it's sort of like fresco, like a dry fresco. It's really beautiful, and you can scratch into it, and sucks up the watercolor like plaster.
Does it relate also to the texture of the cast plaster? With
Well, that's what it helps. You know, I'm so used to using those kind of materials that it makes sense to do this kind of, to paint on them. And these are all inks on plaster, all these pieces. Actually, everything in the show, the sculpture is all, this one is maybe wood stain. I used a floor stain. So whatever we had around in the studio, I'd start throwing on it. That one's just a blue ink, and some are watercolor.
Because the patina is really nice, especially in that one.
I started painting again, or I said drawing, and then it really kind of turned into painting. recently, the last 4 or 5 months while I was working on this sculpture. Then I was also working on a lot of drawings. So it seemed natural to just kind of be throwing color onto the plaster, both the sculpture and these drawn things. It was fun to paint again. Like you get a result. Instead of what we go through here, like 4 months later, $5,000 in, you get your idea. And this way you can do something and see it the same day and get a reaction from it. And then you can do something else from that.
What is the difference between the audience there and the audience here? And are you conscious of two different audiences?
Yeah, I think I put my culture first because I don't want to lose myself in that. I don't want to, go back home and they will see me different as not being part of the society anymore. So I still want to maintain that language, as much as I still want to be able to, pass my message across. I think the whole world is becoming one. People are tolerating or compromising with other cultures. The Ghanaian society will be my audience at the same time the Western world will understand me. Like with Tom's piece, for instance, it's a manifestation of this thing. You could see some sort of quote-unquote primitivism in it, And here's a guy coming from Ghana. I'm supposed to be doing primitive art. Here I am using a Western language to do African subject matter. Hopefully one day I will be in that sort of equilibrium point when both societies will be very, very appreciative of what I've done. If you go to Ghana right now, the way somebody was born and bred in Accra, which is the capital, sees things is different from a typical village with little influence of Western lifestyle. So even in Ghana, there's still that sort of problem as reaching a general audience, people see differently as well.
If this work was shown in Ghana, the audience will readily, they can right away get through to the essence of it.
Could you speculate how the audience in Ghana might respond to Tom's work?
That's a good one.
There might be a
That's
few
a good one.
questions. They might have a few questions.
That's a good one.
Would it be that immediate?
I guess they will really get it because you see there is this belief that the foreigner sees what he knows.
Tom, I think your public work definitely creates an access point of discussion.
The group of artists that I first started collaborative projects, we responded to this situation you're talking about in the galleries where you'd have an artwork and you'd talk about anything but the artwork.
I see some interesting convergences. I see a lot of mirrors in these works. But
when it comes to creativity, I would tend to think that there are certain things that there's that universality. It's like a well where you can reach into it and nourish yourself. And we discussed his enthusiasm in trying to know what contemporary African art is about.
I liked how it was kind of a blind date. Like, we never met.
But
It wasn't blind date to me. I said, to me, it wasn't blind date. I said, Tom Otterness, I'll grab it.
What is next for both of you? You're working on the Wichita piece right now? Or?
Yeah, the Wichita piece, and I hope if we go into contract, I'll do something at the 14th Street subway station. So, yeah, so little figures and kind of a Big Brother atmosphere, like a security camera that looks like a fly.
I'm working I make sculpture like taking a cup of tea. It's my lifeblood. I can't stop making sculpture. I don't have any plans to show my works anytime, but I will be planning on that around June. I have quite a number of new works ready.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.